Hello and welcome to today's 16th webinar in the On the Move webinar series, Using Business Intelligence to Improve Your Labor Force, brought to you by Intelligrated, now part of Honeywell. I'm Tracy Niehaus, Marketing Manager for Intelligrated, and I'll be your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. Please note that this presentation's audio is provided by phone number or through your computer sound system, so be sure to turn up your computer's volume. You may ask an online question at any time throughout today's presentation by clicking on the question mark icon located in the floating toolbar at the edge of your screen. Simply type your question into the text area and hit send. Please keep the send to default set as all panelists. Questions will be addressed at the conclusion of the presentation with the exception of WebEx technical questions that can be asked and will be answered real time. Please note that we recommend that you be hardwired when attending this webinar. A Wi-Fi connection may result in lag time in slides updating and graphics loading. Additionally, if you are joining us via the WebEx mobile app, you will not have the ability to view videos or animations included in this presentation. Today's webinar includes polling questions. Please feel free to answer these questions when they appear. We will be sharing the results real time during this event. If you'd like to revisit key sections of today's webinar, it will be available on demand at intelligrated.com/on-the-move approximately 24 hours after this live event. You'll also receive an email in a couple of days with a link to the recorded event. Now on to the presentation, Using Business Intelligence to Improve Your Labor Force. Discussing today's topic will be Jason Franklin, Product Manager of Labor Management Software and Business Intelligence for Intelligrated Software. Jason has over 14 years of experience as a retail supply chain consulting professional with a focus on process and technology improvements. His first-hand experience includes package implementations spanning many aspects of the system lifecycle, including infrastructure, planning, data conversion, system testing, user training, and support. Jason has been featured in multiple material handling and logistics publications. And with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Jason, and the webinar will now begin.
Thanks, Tracy. This is Jason Franklin, and I appreciate you guys all joining today. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about how business intelligence can be used to get visual and analytical insights into your labor force. And to start that off, what I want to do is I want to talk about how BI has evolved, where it started, where it is now, and where we feel like it's going, and how people are finding value from that. Then we'll quickly talk about the labor management market and how it's changed in the last couple years from sort of a dearth of jobs to jobs being available and how that impacts it and how business intelligence can help you uncover different opportunities. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move into a couple case studies, whereas I'm going to use some visualization, some business intelligence analytics to look through some different labor data to start getting some insights to show you guys how this tool can help you drive insights, make sure that you're making the right decision and things like that when you're impacting your labor. After that, we'll do a little wrap up, and then we'll open up the floor for any kind of questions. So with that, let's start off by talking about that evolution of business intelligence. Business intelligence really started as an IT-centric type of function. What would happen is business users that needed data, they would define up front all the data elements they need, all the different types of views, and that could be timelines, different transformations of the data, different data sources. They would define that, give that to IT, and IT would create something like a query that would pull that data out, and maybe it was dumped into something like Excel so that people could absorb that information or do soft analytics on it. Well, it started as that niche industry and really has now expanded now. So as the functionality has grown, the number of players has grown into that. So as it's shifted from that IT function to more of a user-centric focus, we're finding that there's a lot more players in the space. And you guys can see that. I'm sure you can't read all the different players, but if you look, there's a whole host of individual companies that are able to provide different levels of business analytics. We're talking about data setup. We're talking about management, applications that sit on top of that data, APIs and data sources that pull it all together. So now there's a huge number of players because we're starting to see a lot more value through this business intelligence because of now that user-centric focus. So that IT-driven reporting model has really gone away, and what's happening now is we're exposing that data to end users. And now we have point analysts that are able to take that data and try to solve their specific problem, not necessarily the problems of the overall business, but problems specific to them, and they're using data and visualization to help drive to those. We're seeing that this has really been well accepted because of the growth. If you look at that, BI software revenues, it's projected to grow from nearly $122 billion in 2015 to $187 billion in 2019. And that's really a 50% growth over that 5-year forecast. So we know that the industry is growing because of the number of players and the number of money and the amount of money that's going towards those players. So what are some of the things when we talk about that self-service data analytics? What exactly does that mean? And it's really around a lot of different things. It's about filtering information. It's about connecting data, different data sources. And then another large part, one of the encouraging trends we're seeing is the visualization. So really we're seeing now that people are using visualization and recognizing that analytics are really driven by people defining what are the outsets, what are the outliers, what are the different anomalies in the data. And one of the ways that we could use our brains and eyes the way we've been trained is through visual analytics. So self-directed data and visualization really come together, and it allows us to take large data sets and absorb them and understand them and analyze them very quickly. So let's look at an example. What I've done now is I've opened up an animation that actually shows daily commutes for a Southern California city. So you can see each color itself is a district, and commuters coming in and coming out are all defined by the colors in them driving through. Each one of those dots represents about 4,000 people in what's called a census distribution. So now what we're seeing is millions and millions of rows of data. This is about 4 or 5 million rows of data that we're looking at. And now I can quickly see the different commuting patterns that people are using, and that allows me to start making inferences in traffic, in localization of services, of where the center area of business is in this particular area. So now I can get multiple insights from this one visualization, and I can do it very quickly because of the way my brain and eye works, and we're able to pick out anomalies very quickly and understand different data points, different data trends, in all these data points. Another useful example is sports stats. If we look down here at the bottom, I can really quickly see the difference in these two players being compared. And one of the key factors of visualization is I can have multiple layers or multiple sort of aspects of the data shown in one graph. If we look at these sports scores, I can see where an individual takes a shot, which shots are high percentage, how often he takes those shots, and what side of the floor he or she likes, et cetera, et cetera. So for some one quick visualization, I'm able to get multiple levels of insight into what this basketball player is made of. Now, we can also extend that to operational data, and that's what we'll be talking about today. We're going to be looking at labor data and using visualization to identify those trends to show you guys the value of this visualization and how we can narrow down a focus to find the root cause of a problem, because oftentimes the root cause of a problem is not necessarily what exactly is causing it, but it's a reflection of that issue. So again, visualization adds value because it allows users to take large information sets, digest them, and understand what are the different anomalies, what are the different trends, so then we can dig deeper into finding either the root cause or opportunity for improvement in that specific area. So now we're coming to our first polling question. One of the things that we want to understand is, does your organization currently use self-service BI tools? Is that something that you guys are rolling out? Is it something that you're using? So a quick yes or no answer, and we can understand exactly how much of this group is currently employing this self-service BI. So as we're gathering our responses, it's going to take us just a little bit of time to gather those responses, and we'll let you know what you guys think as far as how much you guys are using these business intelligence tools. Okay, so our response is that about 67% of you are not using business intelligence tools. So that makes me feel a little happy, because now I'll be able to show you guys some of the value that you can get from using these business intelligence tools if you haven't been exposed to them. Okay. So let's continue on. So now let's talk about exactly who is using those data visualization, those self-service analytics, and what are they getting out of them. IBM Business Institute did a survey of about 900 businesses across 70 countries, and they found that in today's marketplace, a lot of leaders are really trying to convert these data-driven insights into actionable plans. So a lot of times we're generating a lot of data. We're trying to drive insights from them, but it's difficult to connect that insights into an actionable plan, right? So what we found was about 19% of the top users, the people that were really successful, they're infusing analytics throughout the organization to drive smarter decisions, enable faster actions, and then to optimize those outcomes after we have. So this is from the IBM Business Institute, these graphics, and it's showing some of the different stats that we found really, really interesting. One of which is about 85% of the industry leaders feel like they're driving value from acting on those insights. So those individuals that are really successful, those 19%, 85% of them feel that they are driving huge value from acting on those insights that the data analytics gives them. They're also finding that about 78% felt that the data has the potential not only to optimize or help their business, but to really change the way their companies do business. So it's actually giving insight that information that allows them to look at a problem a different way, maybe approach a solution in a way that they hadn't before, which is giving them competitive advantage over their counterparts. One of the other things that I want to mention about this study was that looking through those top 19% that we identified as substantially outperforming the industry and market, they found that there was really three key insights that they really found across the board of those 19%. Number one, the analytic implementation strategies have to support your business objectives. You can't have a separate analytics group and then a business driver group that does not connect. Analytics is only as valuable as the problem you're trying to solve. So making sure that you're trying to solve the right problem is your first step at getting value through these self-service analytics tools. The other one is that you've got to have the right technology in place to support that strategy. If we are going to go with a point strategy where individuals are defining problems and solving problems in their own areas and then rolling that learning up into an overall strategy, we've got to make sure that we can support them with the right business intelligence tool that allows them to do that self-service and visualization, to find those insights that then we can boil up to the larger group to make those actionable plans that we're looking for. And finally, this is one that is very important, the organization's culture has to evolve so that people take action on that strategy. One of the things that we've seen in talking through business intelligence strategies with lots of different companies is a lot of time there's a business intelligence group that's siloed away from the business unit, and what happens is they create insights, they create data, but that doesn't necessarily translate over into the business group because maybe the business group doesn't understand it, doesn't necessarily believe the information that they're given, or maybe doubt the way that information was created. So aligning those two is really what we see the successful organizations do to drive that type of value. Another key point is that these analytics foster not only actionable plans and understanding of operational solutions and issues that are driving, it really fosters innovation. looking through the MIT Sloan Management Review, you can see these graphs on the side. And before this self-analytics, self-service analytics became prevalent, when we were looking at just sort of overall business intelligence tools that were IT-driven, it had plateaued in about 2002, and the value and innovation from it just started to decline until in the last couple of years we're now starting to see more powerful self-service tools and visualization tools from the different business intelligence players, and that is driving innovation again. So we found after some declines, as I mentioned, in 2012 to 2015, that advantage from what people are finding has risen 6% in the last year from 2015 to 2016. And now 55% of companies down in that bottom graph said that they're getting effective at using that data. And again, that's a direct relationship to being able to have these self-service tools so that now the business unit that is actually having the issues can have analytics driven towards their issues and give them insights at their level rather than an overall tool that IT is driving that may or may not give you the right views that you're looking for. So users, again, realizing more and more strategic insights through these tools, and there's also another sort of wave of innovation that's coming when we start thinking about some of the new data sources that are coming in, like the Internet of Things. In our studies, we found that while the Internet of Things are generating lots and lots of data, and if you don't know what the Internet of Things are, it's all these different sensors that provide information. So traffic sensors, air quality sensors, sensors that tell you when customers come into a store, sensors that tell you when a picker is in a certain area. All those things are driving towards being more realistic in the warehouse and in retail stores, and they're generating data. And we found that about 1% of that data right now is being used. So we're going to have to drive value from the Internet of Things. We're going to have to expand that business intelligence breadth to include that Internet of Things offerings and start processing all that data. So now, not only are we going to have more data sources, we're going to have an exponential amount of more data that's going to be flowing through these. So having the right analytics approach is very important. Now we're going to go into another polling question. I'm coming through these first slides quickly so that we can get to the meat, which is that where we're going to drive some value through some business intelligence visualization. So in this question, we want to identify the percentage of decisions made using business intelligence data analytics. And I can probably predict some of this answers because of the amount of individuals that weren't currently using business intelligence. But I'll give you guys a couple seconds to get some votes in so we can understand what the main category of individuals are that are viewing this webinar today. All right, we're getting close to having some results. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide while we wait and let everybody get some time in to get some votes against that. So as you guys are finishing up those questions, and it looks like we did get some results, and it looks like the overwhelming answer is D, which is less than 25%. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for this group that's viewing this today to relook at their business intelligence strategy, understand where you guys are and where you guys could be to get these actionable insights, and how successful companies are using this to drive innovation and give competitive advantage. So now what I'd like to do is jump into the state of the industry. So we're hearing a lot about labor, and the labor market has very much flipped. And I have to give credit to my colleague, Jerry Cook, for this slide. But what we're looking at is, although we're hearing a lot of different labor issues around retail stores, lots of retail stores closing, and lots of jobs lost in physical stores, those jobs are really being transferred into e-commerce, the warehousing. So as different retailers move into fulfilling orders from stores, shipping from stores, allowing you to pick up items in stores, they're having to move into a new e-commerce model to make sure that they're able to support that, they're able to get customers their items in the method that they want. Maybe that's getting it shipped directly to their house or, again, to a store where they can pick it up. So what's happened is there's been a shift from those retail job stores to e-commerce, okay? And of those jobs, we're now seeing that back in 2009, for every open job, if you look at that bottom right corner, for every open job, there was about 5.5 people that are employed. Well, now because of this huge switch in e-commerce and it creating a lot new warehousing jobs, transportation jobs, shipping jobs, et cetera, we're now seeing that for every open job as of October 2016, there was only 1.5 unemployed people. So basically what that's saying that it's really challenging now to get the right person for your warehousing job or for your fulfillment job. So what's going on is 84, as you can see, 84% of those trying to hire reported that the market was at quote-unquote full employment and found very little qualified applicants for the position. So what that's doing is shifting tools like labor management tools to be more of something that makes it easier for people to work there. It makes it easy to retain people. It gives them opportunity for advancement. It gives them opportunity for bonuses that allows you to not only get the right people, but keep the right people in this job market that's become increasingly challenging. And as we did some surveys, and a lot of this is from work and Georgia Center for Innovation of Logistics, we found that about 63% of warehouse operations say people are the most important. So that really positions us well with the labor management system because we have lots of different ways to make that person feel included, make them understand how their contribution works to the overall business goals, gives them opportunities to earn more money, gives them fair rating, decreases nepotism, all those different things in the labor management system. It fits quite well in the current job market that we have because we're able to address those labor challenges of finding people, improving the skills, and then managing and retaining that talent. So now, what is the value to labor for business intelligence? And it really, these are just a couple examples. There's really a host of examples, but what I wanted to do was point out some of the items that business intelligence allows you to uncover that helps with both operational and strategic opportunities across your whole enterprise hierarchy, right? So I'm not going to go over each of these, but you can see that, at the enterprise level, maybe we're looking at how does this facility's units per hour compare to my other facilities. So now I can understand an apples to apples comparison across different maybe facilities in the country to understand how do they rate against each other, and then that can flow into a strategic example. Like I have additional production in the Southeast. What's the most cost-efficient facility to send it to? Because I know these different metrics at that enterprise level, I'm able to start making strategic decisions that are data-driven and that I know are factual-based rather than a gut feel of what I think it will do or how they'll process. I know how they'll process this because I have a host of analytic data to support it. So as you can see, there's lots of numbers, and again, this is just for labor. These translate to transportation, order fulfillment, picking, packing, shipping. Every piece of your different area that you're going to do order fulfillment, we can do, business intelligence can help you make decisions that are going to be good for your overall business. And not only that, it allows you to track those different those different decisions so that you can have a nice continuous improvement feedback loop to not make mistakes. If you do make a mistake, to not make those mistakes again. So I'm going to quickly also talk about some of the other why I feel like business intelligence is a huge boon to your labor management program. Labor programs generate a lot of data. You're looking at individual level data of performance, how they use their time, what type of products they work on, where are they certified, where they have opportunity for improvement, who's doing better, et cetera. We'll examine some of those when we get into the case study section of this presentation. We also found that business analytics drive focus to the area of need. So because I'm able to define a report, an interactive report, or a dashboard visualization based on the problem I'm trying to solve, it allows us to drive down to that problem, stamp that out, and then move on to the next problem and define maybe another business analytics set of reports in order to stamp out that new problem. Because one of the things that you guys are probably familiar with in a warehouse is it's a living thing. As you solve problems of overtime or staffing or temps, that inevitably draws another problem in another area. Maybe it's productivity, maybe it's time utilization, maybe it's training or certification. So as you start improving and start creating these continuous improvement loops, you're guaranteed to have focus in the areas of need because you as a business user and using this self-service analytics are driving the analytics to the problems that you're trying to solve that are important to your group. As I mentioned earlier, and I'll show you in these case studies, sometimes the first cause that you think is not actually the root of the issue. So one of the really powerful items that business intelligence allows you to do, it allows you to do multiple levels of investigation. So maybe you see a problem, you identify it as this, but now you drill down a little bit. You drill down a little bit more, and you find out that the problem that you initially thought it was is actually not the problem. But business intelligence allows you to, again, drive that focus so you can make sure what the actual issue is. And finally, another tool about business analytics is the fact that you can pull multiple data sources together. Once your team and your area, your organization gets good at business intelligence, it allows you to link different data sets together. Labor data with financials, financials with transportation, transportation with your temps or your different delivery times, things like that, allows us to really connect everything together so that now we can get a holistic view of what's going on so that we can make sure that when we're providing these strategies and looking for areas of opportunity, we're really getting into the right problem. So now we're going to move into one more polling question before we drive into the actual case studies. So what we're trying to understand is, what labor metric does your organization feel is most important? Is it the performance at the different levels, meaning individual, operational, whole enterprise? Is it how they're using their time? Is it the labor cost? Is it the accuracy for those individuals? Or is it your cost per unit or overtime? So I'll say that the labor metric is different for different companies and different for different times of the year. In some cases, maybe performance is something that's important, but at another time, maybe when you're getting items out directly to customers, maybe it's accuracy that's important so that we make sure that that individual gets the items that they ordered so that we can make sure that they become a repeat customer rather than losing that individual, because the omni-channel rise of customers' expectations has really changed the way people expect to get items. They expect to get it in a couple of days. They expect to get it right, or they may not come back as a customer. So we've got some polling results, and it looks like that total labor cost is really the winner with a second of cost per unit. So really a cost-driven item, which, again, business analytics lends itself well to because you've got a history of what things are costing you, so we can enter that information into a continuous improvement feedback. So now what I'd like to do is we're going to actually jump into a business intelligence instance, and we're going to look at some case studies for different areas. So let's go down to, we're going to start off with the first scenario, which is a labor investigation. So what's happening is I'm a shipping manager, and there's been some shipping misses stemming from third shift. So I've been tasked with understanding what the issue is, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull over here. And now we're going to, so what I've done is I've opened a data set, and now you can see what this is a business intelligence self-service analytics entry screen looks like. So I've got data elements here on the side. I've got a visualization panel here, and then I've got the ability to edit those visualizations here. So let's start off by First off, let's look overall operation-wise how people are performing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select heat map. And now the tool's going to start off and it's going to say, hey, are you trying to look at employee type by these elements? No, actually what I want to look at is my overall operation. And you can see I'm just dragging and dropping these elements and my tool is live creating it, right? And I want to color it actually by performance, right? And we'll cut that count out, right? So now I can see that deconsolidation, shipping, pick area, well, it doesn't look like shipping is doing too bad. But if you recall, I'm looking overall all shifts right now. So now let's make sure that we pull out just the different shifts so we can look at shift 3. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to add that to the page by. So now I can look through shift 1, and I can see actually we're already in shipping. Look at shift 2. Oh, we're not as well. And shift 3, we're also not as well. Now, another piece of this information right now is just saying, hey, look, receiving is doing much worse than shipper. So is receiving our problem? Well, one of the things that we want to look at is these heat maps allows us to look at multiple dimensions of the data at once. So right now I'm coloring it by performance, but let's size it by hours worked. So now I can see why shipping is such a huge deal for us on third shift. I'm using almost double the hours of the next largest element in shipping. So that is costing me a lot of money, and that's what's driving this investigation, okay? So now I can understand that shipping has a low performance. Let's understand a little bit more about that. So let's add another visualization, okay? So now let's look at the actual individuals that work within this element. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to grab a bar chart. And it's saying, hey, are you looking at full-time and temp? Actually, I'm looking at all my associates, and I want to see their performance percentage. Okay. So now I've got everybody's performance percentage, right? So that doesn't really help me yet because if I want to look at how the shippers are doing, but it's really seeing everyone, and I'm not necessarily able to see everyone in this peeled out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and show you again the power of the tool. I'm going to use this as a filter. So I'm going to filter this vertical bar. So now when I select an area, it's going to filter on just those individuals. Okay. Now one of the things when I was discussing with some people that were working in third shift, they mentioned that part of the problem they felt was the number of temps that we used. Okay. So let's add a visualization to check on those number of temps. So I'm going to grab a bar. I'm going to grab a pie chart. I want it by employee type, and then I want their hours worked. So now we can understand what's the makeup of full-time versus temp in each area. Let's link that one. So now I can look at shipping on shift 1, 4%. Shift 2, worst performance, 10%. Shift 3, even worse percentage at 16%. And still a worse performance percentage. So on first blush, this might lead me to think that temps are my issue. But again, this is where the value of the data analytics goes, because if I had just set this up front and given this to an IT professional, I might get back just these data sets and understand and think, okay, our temps are our problem. But let's continue that. Let's look at investigation. So let's take this and color this by temps so we can see how many temps are actually in each one, right? Okay, I've got 4 temps, and overall, it looks like their performance is not very bad. So let's check that performance. Let's add another visualization. So you're starting to see how I can start driving down on what I think the problem is. So it's employee type. Let's get a performance percentage up there. And we want to color by employee type to make it easier to read. So now I'm seeing, let's pull this over. Now I'm seeing that even though I have more temps, my temps are actually outperforming my individuals. So let's go to full screen and do some investigation on that. So I can now, with this dashboard that I built in about 3 or 4 minutes, I can now see each area. I can drill down on the individuals. I can see my temps versus my full-time in performance. I can see how much of those temps, and then I can see overall how my temps doing against it. And as I look through this, it seems like in most areas, actually, wait, I've made a mistake. I didn't connect that to the, let's make sure that vertical bar is filtered. That's why I wasn't changing. Let's go back to full screen. So now I can look and see that actually down here, my temps are either equal or outperforming my full-time in just about every area except equipment. Does that go across multiple shifts? No. So what that's telling me is there's something about third shift training that temps are getting that full-time employees are losing. So if I was the leader of this, I would make sure that our program that temps get, I would refresh my full-time employees with that periodically to make sure that the practices that the temps are using are also the practices that my full-time employees are using. So again, we initially came in with a thought that, hey, my temps, because I use more temps in a particular area, they're causing my performance to go down. But the actual truth was the temps are being trained right, they're delivering higher performances, and now we should look at our training program to make sure that we're addressing items that trainees get and making sure that the full-time employees are getting refreshed on that to make sure that they keep their performance up and keep it stable. So again, a quick example, but now you can see how these tools work to start driving visual indicators on what's important and driving down insights and actionable plans. So now let's go back up. We're gonna go back up a folder. And now we're gonna take a look at a second case study. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this. So this second case study deals with something that you guys have probably seen before, and across different operations, you often have someone that outperforms everyone else. So one of the things of labor management tools that you need to do is make sure that you understand not only people that are not doing well and how they're not doing well, are they using the wrong process, the wrong pace, the wrong utilization, things like that, but also individuals that are doing very well. What is their secret sauce that we can understand and possibly get out to the rest of the group to make sure that our entire facility is as productive as those particular individuals? So what I've done here is I've started off and I'm looking at overall performance by associate, and it's breaking by operations. But this data is unusable, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to break it out again. So let's go ahead and take our operation and add that to the page by. Look how much more usable that data is. Being able to slice and dice this data on the fly allows us to drive those different insights. So now I like actually the drop down. So now I can look at packing and I can see, hey, there's 3 or 4 individuals that are really outperforming everyone else. I can look at pick, receiving, et cetera. But what I'd like to focus on is this shipping again, right? So if we look at this shipping, I can see very quickly there's one individual that's very much outperforming everyone else. So let's check some things on it. So the first thing I would want to check is this just for this period, or is this something that's continued to happen? So let's add a visualization. Let's select one. We're going to select a line graph. And now it's saying, hey, fiscal period, and I want performance across that. Okay? So now I'm looking at performance for an individual. And once I link these, well, actually right now I'm looking at performance overall. But once I use this as a filter and link these, I can now look at a specific individual and see what their performance is, right? I'm also going to break this by associate, right? And color by associate as well, right? So now I'm looking at the different associates within a different area and then their performance. And as I select an individual, it updates with that, right? Another thing that I want to show and I want to make sure that people understand is very important with business intelligence is making sure that you have consistent ratings, consistent scales. Because one of the things that you're seeing is as I'm selecting over here, it looks like everyone is performing about the same. But if you see, this is all changing right here. So in order to get that to where everyone is against each other, let's do a custom scale. So let's go and make that custom. We're going to go from 0.3 to, let's do 2.3. So now when I select around different individuals, their data, it's actually, their data is going to be rated against each other. So 30%, 230%, okay. right? So now the axis range should be set, and that allows us to look at different elements and also make sure that they're all rated right. So one of the other things that I want to look at is now I can understand that this individual has had consistent high performance for a number of periods. Let's look at what the activities that person is doing to make sure that we're getting the right elements that we need. I'm playing with too much stuff. We're going to color that by associate, okay? And then this is still linked, so we're looking at the different elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another graph. This time I'm going to add a pie chart. I'm going to do the ring. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, what is the slice? So the slice, I'm going to have the production tasks, which are the activities that individual did. At the angle, I'm going to do the count of those activities. So now I can see relatively what each element, each individual, what are the activities that they're doing, right? And then across the color, I'm going to go ahead and color it by those production tasks so we can tell very easily what our different things are. Let's drag this up over here. Let's link those together again. So now I can see, if I select off of this, and let's go full screen. If I select off of this, I can see the activities that everyone does, right? So in this particular area, we're having people do cases, tasks, UPS cases, etc., right? So now I can look at each individual and see what their makeup is. So this individual that's successful is doing a good bit of cases and a good bit of tasks. This individual is also doing a little bit of USPS cases. If I look at my individual up here, I can see that they're doing mostly cases, and they're doing it at a level that is unmatched by everyone else, right? So they're producing 3,000 cases over the time period. They're producing 8,000 cases. So now I know as a business leader that I should investigate this individual's approach to how they manage cases. Are they gathering a number of cases together and processing them all at once? Is their pace just more is different? Are there other methods that they're using? Are they opening the boxes in a way that other people aren't, or packing the boxes, in a way that people aren't, that are faster? So now we can go back to that individual, understand what their learning is, understand what their process is, and give that as learning to everyone else. Another thing that's very interesting is if you look, they're not doing any FedEx cases or UPS cases. So is there something in that process that is detrimental to performance that allows this other individual to excel? Now, I also talked about how we have this filtering ability. So when I select this, it's filtering these other two graphs. One of the things I'd like to show is that works multiple ways. So now, let's say that I come to this one, and I use this as a filter for that vertical bar. Now, if I go back to full screen, what's going on is I can actually select a particular production task. So in this case, it could be cases, FedEx. Let's do UPS cases. Once I select this, it shows me how those individuals are performing against this. So now I have another layer of visibility into my workforce to see, are those cases, are those standards tuned correctly? Are people working on them properly? Is there someone that's doing that particular activity way better than everyone else? And what are they doing different? So now I can start to drive other types of learning. And if you recall, I can look across multiple elements in order to define that learning. Right? So here's packing, here's pick, and then I can understand how are we doing on 8-pack cases, et cetera, et cetera. So now I can save this dashboard, and this dashboard gives me huge insights into my activities that my individuals are doing and where I should be putting my focus. So now, the last thing that I want to show is how execution monitoring can help you in intraday resource planning. So if we look at this, this is a plan that we've defined. So what happens is we take an overall plan of execution, what we want to get done in a particular day, and we break it up into bite-sized chunks. In this case, we're looking at hour-long waves. What it looks at is the tool looks at what my volume should be at each time. After 10 a.m., I should have this much complete. And it's looking at the actuals and telling me after each hour is completed, how am I doing against that plan? And then it's telling me to suggest its staff to make sure at that performance and utilization that we're going to execute the plan right. Now let me show you how visualizations can help drive that. So we're going to go back up, and we're going to launch this progress monitoring. So what this visualization does is it runs all day. I'm not going to feed it live data, so I'm going to show you one that at the beginning of the day and one at the end of the day. But let's talk about how much value this information can give us. So right now, let's look at a specific, we'll look at these outbound picks. So what I'm looking at is packing, right? And it may be difficult to see through the webinar, but these are 15-minute blocks. So what the tool is doing is grabbing in 15 minutes blocks, is processing how much, what's the plan, which is the green bar, how much we have to create. The blue line is the best path for us to actually consume that to get out at our 5 o'clock ship time, right? You can see that we've created a plan that allows for less production during lunch, and now we're watching that plan in 15-minute increments, and I'm starting to see how much we either have gone over our plan or under our plan. So in this case, I can see that after 45 minutes, I'm already down 80 people. So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, you should rate up the number of individuals that you have because you're getting behind plan. So as this goes through the day, what this is doing is providing visual advance notice. A lot of times people will have this up on the screen, playing throughout the thing. So now we can understand what it looks like when we complete the day. So now I can see how I did. Initially, I got up above my plan. I had some people leave, and then I had to actually come back up in order to start, because my delta started growing, and I had to manage my individuals to this. So not only does this tell me how many people I used, it tells me how I'm doing against the plan, again, giving me advance notice to make changes. And I didn't want to get here at 5 o'clock and just be 225 cases down, right? So what this does is allows me to understand how am I trending, and allows me to take workers from maybe an area that has too much work, because too many individuals, because I could see that in the progress monitor as well, and move them to an area of need that allows me to do that. So now, again, I'm getting intraday, intra-month type of information as I execute against plans I define, and allows me to make sure that at that end of the day, we've finished the plan and we're ready to ship. So again, another example of how visual insights, visualizations can help drive actionable plans. So let's start wrapping everything up. So some of the things that we found in creating this is, again, I'll reiterate, business intelligence has evolved from this IT-driven sort of querying, giving you back a huge data set that you then have to analyze using Excel and things, to more of a self-service analytics like what I've shown you today, whereas we were driving value through it, creating graphs, connecting those graphs, driving down to different levels of information to make sure that we're getting the answer, the full picture. It's really starting to drive a lot more value, and that's why we saw that while there were some declines from 2013 to 2015, we're really starting to see the value from business intelligence grow. The data visualization adds value because it allows users to digest large information sets by using those different trends to identify outliers, anomalies. You think again about that traffic example we showed. A lot of different information, 5 million rows of data, and you can look at it for 30 seconds and start getting insights into that data, something that you would not be able to do otherwise. We're also found that successful businesses are driving decisions, innovation, actionable plans using data, and they're being very successful with it. And many feel that it has the ability to change the way they do business, because now they're starting to see a more holistic view of what's happening. And again, seeing these anomalies, seeing these trends, allowing them to make plans that take advantage of those trends. And then finally, this all connects back to labor and everything, because fulfillment operations, they generate huge amounts of data, and that data can be mined for improvement opportunities, as I showed you today throughout those different case studies. So I hope you guys found this valuable today. We're going to open up the floor to questions, and looking forward to our next webinar and talking to you guys again in the future. Thank you. So we're going to let our moderators, they're getting questions in. We're going to give you guys just a few minutes to sort of to find some different questions. and then we'll answer those questions as they come in.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Jason. And as Jason mentioned, we're going to move on to the Q&A portion of our event. And as a reminder, to send a question to our presenter, please click on the question mark icon located in the floating toolbar at the edge of your screen and type your question in the text area and hit send. Please keep the send to default set as all panelists. And we do have quite a few questions that have come in. But Jason, before I launch into the questions, I realized that I have to apologize to you because I noticed in your bio, I cut a few years off on the bio that I had as opposed to the bio that was on the screen. I was like, wait a minute, numbers and all. But anyway, so I did want to apologize for that.
You're supposed to rate down the age and rate up the experience.
There you go. Okay. Duly noted. Duly noted. All right. So I'll move on to our questions now. And our first question is, what business goals are driving investments for data-driven initiatives?
Oh, good question. So some of the things that we're seeing are, it really falls into sort of three different types of things. Growth is one that's huge. Now you're growing, you're starting to get more data information sources, and you're starting to get it gets to a point where it's unruly for you to be able to get insights, and you really need to mine it. So growth is a huge one. Cost avoidance is also one that we really see up quite a bit. When we have multiple groups creating manual reports, potentially we're not seeing opportunities for cost improvement or reductions. We're seeing that business intelligence is really driving a lot of cost savings for individuals. And then the other one is innovation. We're really seeing that now being able to look at the data in multiple ways, it's starting to drive answers that weren't quite immediately apparent before, and that is driving innovation across all different types of sectors.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question is, what kind of return on investment should we expect from a business intelligence system?
Oh, another good question. Well, it all depends on where you're starting, and it's always a journey. ROI is a journey, so it depends on where you're starting and where you're going. But what I can do is sort of point out sort of some of the value drivers. So the first one is getting an information is difficult. It's across multiple systems. There's different spreadsheets that have it. There's websites that have it. So when you need that one version of the truth and you don't have it, getting a business intelligence system that solves that adds value, right? Another one is that we're finding is like in the sort of traditional BI approach, IT was driving this, and it often becomes a bottleneck because of the people who has the skills that are able to generate these reports are in high demand. So it's often difficult to not only get the data in the right format, but also turning it into meaningful information requires a back and forth that also takes that individual's time and, again, causes a bottleneck. And then, manual reporting, it usually, if it does arrive at all, it sometimes arrives late, and that's also a sort of a challenge to you. And then the tools being difficult to use is also something that we found. So when you're looking at these different pain points, a nice BI system can alleviate a lot of them. So that's really where the ROI comes from. So depending on what model you choose, there's subscription models, there's on-premise models, that ROI is going to change. So it's difficult for me to say exactly what the ROI would be for a specific business, the person asking the question. But I can say from those, really, getting that one vision of the truth, alleviating those bottlenecks, getting the reports on time, all those are going to be value drivers that cause that ROI to be returned. But we are seeing a positive ROI on most BI implementations if the tool is used properly.
Okay. Another question that came in that might feed in nicely with that is what or is there a typical cost for BI implementation?
So there are a couple different models, costing models, and it just depends on how far you want to go. So I can give a range. So there's the different models are usually a subscription or OEM or on-premise type of model. So from a subscription standpoint, we're seeing anywhere from $200 a month per user to $1,000 a month per user, depending on what type of functionality you get. And then from a whole on-premise, whole premise solution, we're looking at, maybe $20,000 to $30,000 a year, up to over $100,000 a year. Again, depending on what type of data sources you're importing, how many end users you have that are available to use that self-service tools, and other factors like that. So I know that's kind of a wide range, but it does depend on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to get one person per group access to this that then pushes it out to everyone else? Or are you trying to build a centralized group? All those are different levers that you pull that determine cost. So a lot of the things are driving the value is making sure that you get your strategy right, come in with a very clear strategy, and that'll help you save money in the long term as to what you're paying for business intelligence.
Okay, all right, let's see. Next question is, self-service is great for the end user, but it seems that it could lead to answers that aren't sound because the user may not know the data well. So how do you ensure that what insights users are finding are sound?
This is a key piece, and it's part of the upfront data setup. It's called it's really a function of IT, and it's called data governance. So when they're creating the data sets and what's called metadata, if you recall when I was using the self-service tool, I had the elements on the left that I was dragging in. I was dragging performance, associate, operation, those type things. Those are called metadata, and basically what it does, it allows the end user to not have to know what goes into creating that metric or that attribute, right? And that's all driven by data governance. So the data governance itself defines what aggregations you can put together that make sense. Maybe I've got individual stats that I'm trying to aggregate at a department level, and that's not the right way. When we're doing our data governance and pushing the data out, we would make sure that it wouldn't give you an answer, it would give you dashes. So really what's going on is IT has to work with business to first define what the actual goal is and what we're trying to do, so that now we can make sure that when we push that data out, users aren't able to create information that doesn't make sense. So it's really a part of data governance, and it's done up front by your IT organization that's rolling out your business intelligence.
Okay, all right, thank you. Actually, we do have quite a few more questions, but we are at time. So just a note to anyone that sent in a question that we were unable to answer, we will send you a response via email. And thanks to all of our attendees for their participation in the Q&A portion of the event. And so, Jason, thank you very much. Sorry to cut you off there. But I just wanted to put out a reminder to our attendees that within approximately 24 hours after this live event, you can access this presentation on demand at intelligrated.com/on-the-move. And you'll also receive an email in a couple of days with a link to the recorded event, along with a link to download a white paper using LMS to address omni-channel challenges. On behalf of Intelligrated, thank you very much for attending today's On the Move webinar, and join us in August when Dave Trice from Intelligrated's Lifecycle Support Services will discuss how regular system assessments can identify ways to increase system capacity and throughput. Registration will be open on our website in July, and we hope you will join us then. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone.